Battlefield 6's next update drops on December 9th, signaling the beginning of the winter offensive phase of Season 1, and if you thought previous updates fixed major issues with this game, well, you haven't seen anything yet. This is the fundamental overhaul that we've been waiting for, with the developers targeting the single biggest frustrations in the game. We're talking a comprehensive pass on audio clarity to make sure crucial footsteps are audible again, sweeping changes to weapon recoil and first shot accuracy to give us more predictable gunplay, and a shift in how rush and breakthrough maps play with key adjustments to objective flow and vehicle balance. But the real headline, I can hear you shouting it already, real work on netcode and hit registration is set to make your shots more reliable, promising a gameplay experience that is sharper, fairer, and more consistent across all modes in the game. I've got all the key information in this video today, so if you're excited about a more consistent and predictable Battlefield 6, then smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for all the latest Battlefield 6 news, and then hit up the comments down below. Let me know what one change you're looking forward to most in the December 9th update. Okay then, let's start with one of the most requested updates for Battlefield 6 so far, an audio rework. Whether you're a player of multiplayer or the REDSEC Battle Royale, you're gonna know about the audio issues that Battlefield 6 has been facing since it launched. Core, important sounds sometimes are either too quiet or go completely missing in the audio mix, including enemy footsteps and the engine sounds of tanks that are creeping up behind you. At launch, this wasn't something I was overly concerned about because I thought it would be addressed really quickly, but it's taken some time for the dev team to bring together these fixes, test them, and then be ready to roll them out. With the upcoming December 9th update, the team is pushing for better prioritization of important combat and vehicle sounds, as well as a comprehensive pass on footsteps to improve clarity, distance definition, and positional awareness right across the game. So this should mean that we can rely on audio again in Battlefield 6 after this update. The team says they've also worked on improving performance and memory issues associated to these audio bugs, which may have been contributing to sounds not playing at all, particularly on the Fort Linden Battle Royale map. Tank engine sounds and footsteps going completely missing has probably been the biggest pain point for players over there since the launch of that free-to-play segment. And it's great to hear, that these issues have been addressed by the team, and hopefully this is something that will now withstand future updates and doesn't end up getting broken again. But I can't help but look back at the open beta in the summer and think that that vertical slice of the game was a lot more polished than the launch product ended up being. That's not particularly surprising because there's so much more of the game being worked on, and Battlefield 6 did still launch pretty well, but there were severe underlying issues that the game had in October that are now finally being addressed. Now, for the issue that's driven a lot of us insane over the last couple of weeks, we need to discuss the netcode and hit registration issues that this game has. I don't know if it's just the community being more in tune with the game now, that we're all noticing these issues more frequently, or if the issue has steadily gotten worse since the launch of the game, but it's certainly much more of a concern for players now than what it was back in early October. The developers are calling this an ongoing process, by the way, but this update brings a suite of changes that targets the fundamental reliability of combat to make sure the game is telling you what's actually happening. First, they've addressed what happens when you're firing during a fast-paced transition, specifically whilst zooming in to aim down sights. The devs have improved how bullet trajectories are aligned in these moments, correcting inconsistencies and errors where your shot felt like it should have hit the player you were aiming at, but it simply vanished instead. This is a crucial fix for ensuring your aim is rewarded. Secondly, the devs have focused on those intense, high-density firefights, the ones that you find in congested objectives or hallways across some of the maps in Battlefield 6. So think like the corridors on Siege of Cairo or the cramped streets of Empire State, for example, those sort of areas. They've updated the netcode to better handle these scenarios, which means when multiple players are trading bullets in close proximity, your shots should now register more reliably. This should cut down on those close-range battles where you swear you pumped 3 bullets into a target who didn't go down, or you see blood splatter come off of an enemy that you're shooting at, but you don't see any hit registration for those shots, and then the enemy gets away. Hopefully, that becomes less of an issue after this update. But the netcode is apparently only half the story, according to the developers. The team has also tightened up the clarity of damage feedback in Battlefield 6. Whilst this doesn't change the netcode itself, it means that the health UI updates more quickly, and the visual cues for incoming damage will feel more immediate as well. And this is vital because if you see the damage, or you don't see the damage, more quickly, the whole interaction feels more responsive and fair. Now, I'm a little bit apprehensive about these changes specifically. I've got no reason not to believe that this was an issue in Battlefield 6. The devs may have found some bugs that need addressing, or they just want to tighten everything up so that we get the information more quickly. But when the main issue players have been reporting is dying behind cover or dying around corners, I'm not inclined to take this as a solution to netcode potentially not working as intended. Now, I know netcode is a massively complex part of any online shooter game, and even me talking about it in this video doesn't do it any justice because there's just so many parts that have to be considered. But this here, changing all the damage feedback and the health UI updates, this feels like an additional fix as opposed to something that was directly contributing to the core netcode issue. And finally, a small but important fix. The devs had found that in some cases, the game would display pieces of cover and geometry that had been destroyed on the server side as still intact on the client side, causing some frustrating moments where damage appeared to pass through solid objects. That will be resolved in the December 9th update. But this is the key takeaway when it comes to netcode. The developers are already looking beyond the December the 9th patch. They state they're actively exploring several areas for further improvements in clarity and fairness, and probably most importantly, they're gathering more data on situations where players feel like they were eliminated after reaching cover. That frustrating dying behind cover or dying around a corner moment is officially a key priority for the dev team, and the findings from these investigations will inform player updates planned for the new year. So this commitment proves they're focused on actually fixing the netcode and giving us a more reliable gameplay experience in Battlefield 6, which is exactly what we need. Moving on now to something that sort of divided opinion when I brought it up in my last video, we're going to talk about soldier visibility. Battlefield 6 is suffering from similar issues to Battlefield 5 in my opinion, due to its extremely contrast-heavy look, where sometimes player silhouettes can be completely occluded in dark areas of maps. Now, I've had people tell me that that's what soldier camos are for. They help you blend in. And while I accept that point about camos, they should help you blend in, I'm more concerned about gameplay in a video game, not in real life. Battlefield 6 is a casual shooter, it's not a milsim, and if you're sitting still on your back in a dark corner, aimed in, waiting for players to run around a corner so you can shoot them in the back because they can't see you at all, that sounds like an issue that needs to be addressed. And based on the wider feedback from the community, it appears the devs agree with them. They are making some key refinements in this upcoming update, specifically adjusting how soldier visibility affects activate at close range, which are designed to make enemy soldiers stand out more clearly in darker or low contrast areas. So, as I just mentioned, if you're a player that's hiding in a shadow or behind a murky piece of debris, the change is aimed squarely at you. The devs have identified that you're the problem, not the people you're killing. The devs have also made an adjustment to prone animations in Battlefield 6. The updated animations now include more subtle movement, and that should improve your ability to spot players attempting to use a low-profile position to cheese their way into a kill streak. So if you're laying down, you will now be slightly easier to spot, which likely means all the spots that you found around all the maps in Battlefield 6 that keep you completely covered, they won't work as well anymore. Now, while these fixes are great for the immediate patch, the team is also teasing bigger things down the line when it comes to visibility. They specifically mentioned that broader improvements to lighting and exposure, especially when transitioning between indoors and outdoor areas, are a major focus for future updates. They want to improve gameplay clarity without sacrificing the core Battlefield visual style that they've adopted for Battlefield 6. So we can consider these close-range fixes as a first step in a larger focus to ensure the environments and everything in it become more readable. Next up, for those of you who have felt like your weapon is fighting against you in Battlefield 6, we're going to talk about weapon handling and recoil. The team states that weapon feel and reliability are always top priorities for them, and this update is delivering wide-ranging improvements to weapon handling. But what does that actually mean? Well, the update will include specific fixes to first shot accuracy, adjustments to how certain attachments behave, and broad tuning across various recoil patterns and weapon categories. The goal here from the devs is predictability. We've all had those moments where two different gunfights using the exact same weapon and it felt wildly different in terms of weapon handling. These fixes are intended to deliver a more predictable and consistent weapon performance during gunfights. The devs want to iron out those random spikes of inaccuracy that made engaging enemies feel like a bit of a coin toss. The developers have also been monitoring the effects of their previous update to the weapon dispersion, or weapon bloom as we've been calling it, from the California Resistance update. They're saying that the early trends show like this healthy distribution across weapons, but they're going to continue refining the system moving forwards. So this confirms that once again, we're not looking at a one and done fix here. They're going to keep tracking data and listening to player feedback, and there will be additional adjustments in future updates. So if your favorite weapon still feels a little bit off after December the 9th, know that the team is still actively working on that stuff. It is a little bit frustrating that fixes like these can't be delivered in one go, but it does sound like the team is reworking a lot of things under the hood to make the overall experience more enjoyable. And so if all of this ends up arriving by the end of Season 1, ready for the rest of the seasons coming throughout the year, then I guess that's a good thing. Something that really piqued my interest from the blog post was the mentions of the rush and breakthrough game mode changes. Now, these are two modes that I've largely avoided playing since the launch of Battlefield 6 because I think they're the worst implementations of the game modes in the franchise's history. And I know that sounds harsh, a little bit extreme, I know, but I'm a rush lover, and they've massacred my boy in Battlefield 6. And breakthrough used to have structure and definition, but here, it's been turned into a meat grinder at the expense of any coherent gameplay whatsoever. But it appears the devs have seen some issues as well, and they're going to make some changes. For Breakthrough, they're making key adjustments to capture volumes and vehicle availability on several maps. They specifically cite Siege of Cairo as an example here, where attackers will now get an additional tank in the first and third sectors, and the B flag capture area has been updated to give attackers a much clearer foothold on what they should be doing. Now, this is a direct response to community feedback, and it's designed to bring win rates for defenders and attackers closer together throughout all of the maps in the Breakthrough game mode. Now, for Rush, the focus is on smoothing out the attack lanes. The devs have gone in and adjusted MCOM locations on maps like Manhattan Bridge and Liberation Peak to give attackers more reliable access and better routes between sectors. So this should eliminate some of those choke points that felt almost impossible to break through whilst playing this game mode. Now, across both game modes, they've rebalanced vehicle spawns to ensure defenders don't hold an overwhelming armor advantage right from the start of the game. And the devs have also reshaped and clarified multiple capture zones, so you know exactly where you need to be to contest or defend an objective. Now, these changes, in my opinion, are absolutely crucial for the life of both of these game modes. They are designed to reduce frustration, remove some bottlenecks, and create some kind of consistent, engaging, more objective-based combat that Battlefield is actually famous for. Now, Rush may well be beyond saving on several of Battlefield 6's base maps. They were just not designed to suit the game mode in any way whatsoever. But Breakthrough feels like it could be salvaged. This is a step in the right direction in making these core modes feel more consistent and rewarding again, and hopefully, when we come to future seasons in Battlefield 6 with new maps, these two modes will end up flourishing again. And finally today, we're going to talk about REDSEC specifically. First, a look at an immediate fix that's coming in the December 9th update. We're talking about tank availability on the map. The community has been quite vocal about tanks feeling overwhelmingly strong in certain scenarios, and the dev team is making a first pass at trying to address this. Now, the change is pretty simple. They're just lowering the frequency of tank missions in the mode, and this is designed to immediately reduce the saturation of heavy armor right across the map. Now, the devs have made it clear that this is a first pass They will be looking at the data, and they will be looking at feedback from players for additional changes in a future update if it's needed. And secondly, and probably more important, I think, because this touches on a core gameplay mechanic, they're addressing the fundamental confusion around armor mechanics in REDSEC, literally the armor plates that you put in. Many players have struggled to understand how armor plating interacts with weapon damage in REDSEC, and the developers have now acknowledged this. They've reviewed the system in detail, and they're going to put out a blog post in the first week of December that's actually going to explain how the armor system completely works in Battlefield REDSEC. So they're not changing anything, they're just actually going to tell you how it works properly. So good, clear communication from the team, I guess. So when you look at the sheer amount of changes that we're going to get on December 9th for this winter offensive update for Battlefield 6, we've got fundamental netcode and hit registration improvements, massive quality of life adjustments to audio and visibility, core game mode changes for rush and breakthrough. It's an overwhelmingly positive update for Battlefield 6. And these aren't quick band-aid fixes either. They are deeper changes that really go in and target some of the frustrations that players have had with this game since it launched. It feels like this is more than just a regular patch for Battlefield 6. It kind of feels like the changes that are going into it are being built as a foundation for the long-term health of the game. The developers have clearly heard the community, they're making the necessary fixes, and they're promising to continue support and make more changes in future patches to make sure the game continues to improve. For Battlefield 6 to truly succeed, however, all of these changes have to stick the landing. They need to deliver a platform where future content can actually thrive, with weird issues like weapon dispersion and recoil fixed, and the netcode and hit registration being worked on and improved over time. Battlefield 6 should be able to move forward on a much more stable footing. Okay, thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you guys soon.